Remember, we had devoted our episode broadcast on 3rd August to India's moves for peace in Ukraine and Gaza. In it, we had traced India's role in conflict resolution over the decades, including but not limited to the tensions on the Korean Peninsula dating back to the 1940s and 1950s. And we'd asked the question, can India play a role in resolving the Ukraine, Russia and Israel-Hamas conflicts? Should India step in and bridge the north-south and east-west divide? Now, the idea of India as peacemaker has been met with a certain degree of skepticism in some capitals of the world. But New Delhi remains cautiously optimistic. As India's Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar says, India under Prime Minister Modi is quote-unquote forging relationships with multiple and often competing powers. And Prime Minister Modi himself said in an interview to an Indian news agency ANI, and I quote, "I have been very friendly with both the presidents. I can publicly say to President Putin that this is not the time for war. I can also say publicly to Ukraine that we should follow the path of dialogue, and this is because I have credibility." Now, much has happened in the last few weeks. Prime Minister Modi has visited Ukraine. He is the first ever Indian Prime Minister to do so. Prime Minister Modi told President Zelenskyy that Ukraine and Russia should sit together without wasting time to end the conflict and that India was ready to play an active role to restore peace in the region.
हम न्यूट्रल नहीं थे, हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का।
Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine followed his 9th July visit to Moscow. He said at the time that it is not possible to find a solution to a conflict on the battlefield. The two leaders listened to each other's views on Ukraine. For his part, Prime Minister Modi placed before President Putin the global South's expectation on peace and stability. Now, the Indian leader has since spoken to the presidents of the US and Russia about his talks with President Zelenskyy in Kyiv. On 26th August, Prime Minister Modi had a telephone talk with US President Joe Biden. While discussing the situation in Ukraine, Prime Minister Modi briefed President Biden on his recent visit to Ukraine. Modi reiterated India's consistent position in favor of dialogue and diplomacy and expressed full support for early return of peace and stability. A day later, on 27th August, Prime Minister Modi spoke to President Putin. He shared insights from his recent visit to Ukraine. He underlined the importance of dialogue and diplomacy as well as sincere and practical engagement between all stakeholders to achieve an abiding and peaceful resolution of the conflict. On 5th September, Russia's President Vladimir Putin acknowledged that he is constantly in touch with India over the Ukraine conflict. Separately, a Putin aide, Dmitry Peskov, told the Izvestia daily that India could help in establishing a dialogue on Ukraine. Underlining the existing highly constructive, even friendly relations between Modi and Putin, Peskov said that the Indian Prime Minister can lead the line on getting first-hand information from the participants in this conflict because he freely communicates with Putin, Zelenskyy and with the Americans. Peskov went on to say that this gives a great opportunity for India to throw its weight in world affairs, to use its influence that would drive the Americans and Ukrainians towards using a greater political will and entering the peaceful settlement track. But he was careful to add that there are no specific plans for India to mediate just yet.